Hey guys, welcome to another art video. Today I'm going to be taking the plunge and attempting the cheap art supply challenge. It's a challenge I've been wanting to do for a long time. I just kind of been like, I don't know. I don't know. I shied away from it. I don't know why. I did the Crayola challenge. I don't know why I wouldn't do the cheap art supply challenge. So what I'm going to do, I think I know what it is. Like, I don't want to take my little bit of extra free money to spend on cheap art supplies, but that's not the point. I'm going to go ahead and hit the dollar store. I have to go do grocery shopping anyway. And the dollar store is like right on the way. And I will pick up a few things and hopefully I can film while I'm in the dollar store. I don't know for sure. I'll just try to be discreet about it, I suppose. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Usually the art supplies is right up by the cash registers though, so I don't know. Yes, so I'm gonna go ahead and head out, pick up my supplies, and I'll be right back with, you know, sort of an overview of what I've gotten if I can't film while I'm in the store. So I'll see you guys then. Okay, so back in my car because I was trying to record and some little kids saw and they came running over. I'm actually out of this dollar store now, but they didn't have anything. Everything's picked over. They didn't have watercolors. They didn't have any markers. They had pencils. They had a few color pencils. But they were like the jumbo ones that like little kids use, like the break resistant ones. And I wasn't really looking to get stuff like that. So I'm going to actually head up the road a little ways and see if the other dollar store has a better selection or more stuff. So this ended up kind of being a bust, but hey, whatever, you live and learn. So I'm gonna head up there and see what I can find. Okay guys, so I am back home now. That was fun. I had to go to a couple different dollar stores because the first one I went to was sold out, and I know I mentioned that before, but they were sold out of pretty much all of their art supplies and it was packed. And so that was Dollar General. So I went from Dollar General to Family Dollar, which was just down the road, and I was able to find some art supplies and I was a lot happier about that. I kind of debated a bit on Crayola versus their store brand, and ultimately I decided store brand. I was like, you know something, go cheap or go home. So I went ahead and I went as cheap as I could. The stuff was not $1, and I always hate that about dollar stores, but it is relatively cheap stuff. So I figured I'd go ahead and give it a go. It's stuff that's available. Most people have dollar stores in their areas, but whatever. So the first thing I got is this Liqui-Mark 12 color count color pencil. My first impression upon looking at them, I didn't look at them in the store, I'm looking at them now. I'm a little excited. I have a little bit of hope. The lead doesn't look like it's over waxy, because sometimes, you know, you get those colored pencils that have sort of like a white wax coating on them because you know that there's just so much wax in them. But they don't feel too bad, so I'm kind of excited to give that a try. We'll see. Yeah. The other thing, and I'll go over the prices at the end, is this Liqui-Mark watercolor set. You get 16 colors plus a brush, and I already know the brush is crap because they usually are, but this is what it looks like without the label on it. I'm surprised that they actually give a white in there, but I'm happy at the same time. We'll see if we can actually use it for something. But yeah, I mean, it feels plasticky, but you never know. Sometimes the pigment comes through, who knows? So there's that, and then I got this 20 count marker set. I think that they had a 10 count, but it was not too much of a difference in price to get the 20 count, so I just went with the 20 count. Yeah. And then I had this at home already. This is kid-made modern paper, It's actually Target. Target sells this for $4.99 on their website, but I got it for cheaper because it was on sale. You can get it on sale for downwards of like $3.25. So I got this thinking it was just a cold press multimedia paper, all of it, but it's actually 3 different kinds of paper. It's cold press 140 pound that they say is good for watercolor, but they do not call it watercolor paper. That's interesting to note. There's a smooth paper in here that is 72 pound for drawing, and then there's a textured paper which is 64 pound in here that they say is good for charcoal and pastels. I've been watching Doodle Date, so now I say pastels instead of pastels, so now it's like pastels for everything. But there's 45 sheets in here. It's divided up. I already had this at home, so I didn't purchase it this time, but I definitely will purchase it again. I use cheaper papers to learn how to use my mediums, and then I will purchase like more expensive stuff. So right now I'm practicing my watercolor on this cheaper paper. I got some paper here, just to kind of get to know my watercolors a little bit better. It feels good. And then maybe one day I'll graduate to, I have some Canson watercolor paper, but I don't really like it. But I could use that too, and then maybe someday I'll graduate to Arch's watercolor paper. But for now, I'm just gonna kind of stick with this stuff because I don't see the point in buying $70, $75 worth of watercolor paper if I'm just going to, you know, move my watercolors around on the paper and not really do anything good with them. So yeah, so I will make this work. Since the markers are water soluble and the watercolors obviously are water soluble, I will probably go with a watercolor paper. But I'm going to swatch all 3 out on all 3 different kinds of paper just to be complete. So the paper that I mentioned is $4.99 at Target, but you can often find it on sale. The markers, the 20 count markers, I got 20 markers for $2.75 before tax. The watercolors, 16 count, I got for $2.15 before tax. And then the colored pencils I got for $1.65 before tax. And altogether with tax, it was $6.94, but before that it was $6.55. So excluding the paper, I got all of these, excluding the paper, I got all of these for $6.55 from the Dollar Tree. No, from Family Dollar. Now, it'd be interesting to kind of compare like different store brands to each other, but that's not what this is about. These are just the cheap art supplies I was able to come up with. So I'll go ahead and do that video, and maybe one day, someday, I will do a video comparing the different like Dollar Generals, Dollar cheap art supplies versus Family Trees versus the Dollar Tree, because I think that that would be interesting too, because then you know which sorts of dollar stores to hit up for your art supplies. But anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this going, but first I'm gonna go get a snack because grocery shopping always makes me hungry. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so first impressions here. This is the cold press 140 pound. First impressions are the color pencils. I'm actually quite pleased with those. They're not waxy, there's no buildup, there's no, you're not fighting the medium. It goes on real nice and smooth actually. It's a little bit hard when it goes on, kind of like more of a very thin feel than, well, I'll say more of a Copic feel, not Copic, Crayola feel than anything. And they actually blend fantastically if you work at it. It could also be the tooth of the paper that's helping with that, so it'll be interesting to see how it does on these other two papers. I'm going to go ahead and swatch those out and then come back and show you guys. The markers, you know, they are what they are. They kind of hit me and remind me of Crayola markers as well. The first marker I tried was already dried. The tip is not very nice. I thought about adding some water or touching it to some water to see if I can liven it back up. But yeah, the watercolors are kind of impressive. They're not bad little colors. They're looking pretty good. It took quite a bit of water to activate them, but and they're not strong pigmented. My purples are a little disappointing, but this blue in particular really caught my eye. This green has really caught my eye. This sort of bluish green up here has caught my eye. So I mean, they're not bad little colors, and really what the frustration was with the watercolors was the brush, which I kind of expected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out for a different brush, and it'll probably be just a regular, let me see what well, I have to look and see what I got. I think I've got some cheaper round brushes from back in my heyday, but we'll see. I'll come up with something. All I'm saying is that, you know, with these watercolors, you may as well just throw out this little chintzy, plastic tipped, dull tipped, square tipped piece of junk. Yeah, all brushes that come in these little kits, I've yet to find one that's good. So I just say throw that out right away and invest in a decent brush. You can usually find packs of brushes for $1 at Walmart or something. But that's it. I mean, oh man, I'm so like excited about this. Look at, that's a dark green and a light green blended. Ooh. Really excited about that. I think this is going to turn out, but I want to hurry up and swatch these other ones. And I'll come back and show you guys how those look on the smooth paper and on the texture paper, because I feel like it's going to make a difference with the appearance of the color pencils and the markers in particular. It'll make a big difference on different kinds of papers. So I will be right back with all of that. Okay guys, so here is the end result. I went ahead and swatched everything on different kinds of paper, because in order to understand how to use art supplies or anything of that magnitude, is you need to try it on different mediums to see how it handles. Obviously the cold press is going to hold the watercolor the best, and it did. There's no buckling or anything for the little swatches I did. It didn't handle the marker too well. As you can see here where I tried to blend my colors, get a little bit more light over here, my goodness. You can see that the tooth of the paper started to lift, and the paper itself started to sort of not do too well. But other than that, it was okay. It seems okay if you just do one layer of the markers, but they're water-based markers, so they're going to kind of tear into the paper a little bit anyway. That's just kind of one of the curses of water-based markers, I guess. But I won't say that I'm an expert at them, because I very rarely use water-based markers. But none of it bled through either, so it seemed pretty okay. Definitely handled the watercolor very well though. The smooth paper, which is considered a drawing paper, handled the color pencils very well. The color pencils went on nice and smooth. I had absolutely no difficulty with them. Smear test here, they're not smudging, so that's good. The marker, it shows through a tiny little bit, and you could tell if you ran your finger over this that there's a little bit of saturation and destruction to the paper itself from using the markers. Watercolors obviously are not meant to be used on this paper. They don't smear, but they do buckle the paper relatively decently. Yeah. But as you can see down here, I was playing with my watercolors a little bit. They look like they blend relatively well, but it also looks like it leaves like this sheen. Like if the more water, the obviously the lighter the opacity is going to be. It's a watercolor. So here I used very little water and it made a nice red-orange combo there. I did some blending with a colored pencil down here, and then I tried to blend with a marker here, and it just ate straight through the paper. So it didn't bleed all the way through, but it definitely frayed that paper. And then on the textured paper, again, your textured papers are more for charcoals and like pastels. And the texture shows through on the colored pencils, the markers, and the watercolors. But that's to be expected because it is a textured paper. I did a little bit more playing around with watercolor down here just to kind of get an idea of what I could do with it. And once again, the markers ate through the paper. So subsequent layers of the markers do eat through the paper. So with the cheaper art supplies, you have to kind of do a little bit of pre-thinking. I'm guessing is that what I'm going to do, because I have an idea of what I want to do. I'm going to be using the cold pressed paper because I do want to incorporate watercolor into it. I'm going to be using the watercolor for sort of base colors and backgrounds, let it dry. And then I'll be going in with my colored pencils to do some touch up, and then I'll be using the markers in one layer increments to sort of bring out some of the foreground details and things like that. I won't be layering the not colored pencils, the watercolor or anything like that. But if you understand how, by testing, if you understand how the products work on different types of paper, you can kind of understand your limits with them, and from your limits you can make it work with your piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I've got, where is it, a regular 2H HB pencil, like never been used. I just sharpened it. This is from school days that are long gone. And I've got a Bic Crystal 1.6mm pen that I just kind of pulled out of my book bag. I'll be using that as well. And then, yeah, then the rest of the supplies that you guys are aware of. But this was just to kind of see how they handled on different kinds of paper, so I can figure out my limits with the materials and sort of get my mind wrapped around what I'll be able to do. But alright, I'm going to go ahead and get started with that, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so this is the final product of my cheap art product challenge. I used watercolor, I used color pencil, I didn't use the markers, I kind of didn't find a use for them. I stuck with the watercolors and the color pencil. I used a ballpoint pen to do my line work. Obviously, unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention and I put my hand in the actual wet ink and smeared it, but it's okay. I kind of feel like that it gives it a little bit of character. The work itself, I think, turned out way more gorgeous than I would have thought. It's pretty similar to my style. Obviously, I'm used to working with markers and things like that, but that wasn't the point of the challenge. The challenge was to still do, you know, high quality looking artwork with cheap supplies. And even as I'm sitting here, I'm like thinking, oh, I could just add a few more details here and there and it would look so cute. I like it. I think it turned out really good. I like it so much I put my signature on it. I think it turned out good. But this is just to kind of show you the kind of artwork you can do with cheap art supplies. Altogether, my supplies didn't cost any more than $7, and that's after tax. And I had a lot of fun with this particular challenge. I'm glad I did it now. It was just really, really cool. I'm still probably going to work at it a little bit, but that's just kind of darkening in lines, because I did, like I said, I messed up the lines with my big old glompy hand because I don't pay attention like a good artist, but that's okay. We learn to roll with the punches, right? But yes, this is it for my cheap art challenge. If you guys liked what you saw, feel free to like, subscribe, comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.